seen the new Netflix documentary on former Toronto Mayor Rob Ford. If you consume the mainstream media in Toronto, it's described as worth a watch. They say a Rob Ford documentary just dropped on Netflix. Here's what people are saying. Now, someone I know and trust does not describe it as worth a watch. She describes it as Netflix trash that made her want to cry, and it sourced the vipers who drove Rob Ford into an early grave. Joining me now to discuss Netflix trashy documentary and her recent op-ed in Juno News is Sue-Ann Levy. Sue-Ann, thanks for coming on the show as I fill in for Ezra over the next few days. Tell us, you watched the documentary, so we don't have to. Break it down for us.
Well, I forced myself to because I knew it was coming, and then I saw it on my own Netflix screen being promoted, and I forced myself to watch it last night, and it was every bit as bad as I expected it would be. The director slash producer, who is from England, basically pulled all the most sensational clips of his time in office and interviewed all the people who, like you said, helped drive him to an early grave, who harassed him, stalked him, mocked him, and just treated him like dirt. And there was actually no attempt made from the looks of it to talk to people who actually thought he'd done a good job for the time he was, before I guess the wheels fell off the bus, and to talk to people who had some empathy and compassion for him. And I don't mean necessarily myself, but anybody who was right of center, who had been with him and watched him for years upon years, would have a slightly different view.
Yeah, they sourced a bunch of journalists who mocked him regularly, Katie
Mm-hmm.
Simpson, and even people who stabbed him in the back, like Mark Towey. It was just the
Yeah,
most bizarre bunch of nonsense. And they never once told the story of the redemption arc, because really, he had a bit of a redemption arc. He swept into City Hall,
mm-hmm.
caused a bunch of chaos. His scandals broke. In the end, he owned them. And then he did his best to get clean and live out the rest of his days as best he could. But that part is left right out of it.
Totally. And the part before he became mayor, because I knew him from the mid 2000s, and the efforts he made as councillor to expose the rot and waste at City Hall was never, ever brought up. He just didn't walk into the mayor's chair. He had had a history, a track record of trying to deal with the gravy train. And he thought that by becoming mayor, he, of course, would have far more influence. Um, and, he had a good year and he had really good people surrounding him. I saw a clip of, for example, Doug Holliday, and I don't know if they ever attempted to talk to him because uh, he helped try to keep the wheels on the bus. And, like I say in my piece, his heart was in the right place.
Yeah.
He had demons. Who doesn't in this life? And I will also add that these are the people who are quoted in this trashy documentary, who would be the first to wring their hands about allowing drug addicts, crack addicts in particular, to roam the streets of Toronto, to get shot up or allowed to smoke at safe injection sites, who have fought vociferously to keep these drug enabling sites going in Toronto. And these are the very same people who speak out constantly about bullying. They should all look in the mirror. They should all be ashamed of themselves for what they said on this documentary.
That's an excellent point. One I was going to make to you is, these are the same people who advocate for supervised injection sites, supervised inhalation sites, compassion for the addict. And actually, I believe in compassion for the addict. I don't want to compassion them right into the grave. And it seems as though, in the absence of all of this, whatever their personal beefs were, political beefs were, with Rob Ford, there's zero respect or compassion shown for the family he left behind in any of this.
No, and I was watching the documentary last night. I thought, well, it's 9 years ago. His daughter must be in her late teens. His son must be a teenager as well. Um, I've really lost touch with the family, but I do know that Doug Ford was approached about speaking, and he said no. Thankfully, he begged off. But why? What was the purpose of all of this? The man is deceased. Let him
Right.
rest in peace.
Yeah, one of the most heartbreaking things for me in all of this was, I think, little Doug Ford, Rob's son,
Hmm. Hmm.
on his lawn. I think he was in his pajamas, talking to reporters, I think after his father passed. And I thought, What are you doing at this kid's house? You know,
Hmm.
get out of there." But they never had any appropriate boundaries with Rob's family whatsoever. I'll never forget. I think it was Daniel Dale peeping over the
Yes.
back fence like an
Yeah.
absolute total weirdo. In a
Yeah.
normal country, that would have ended somebody's career. Instead, he's
Hmm.
gone on to even bigger and better voyeuristic things.
Yes, exactly. Working for CNN and doing his fact finding, which is the biggest joke ever, but in the States. But Katie Simpson as well.
Mhm.
Her reward for mocking and harassing this guy and treating him like dirt was to get a plum appointment in the US. So, there is no justice. And yes, they were very, very intrusive. I can only imagine, Sheila, if I, during my journalism career, had shown up at somebody's backyard. My God, people would have been going crazy
Yeah.
in the left-wing media, of course.
These people really did make a career on Rob Ford
Hmm.
and exploiting Rob Ford's
Hmm.
troubles and the troubles of his family
Hmm.
to make their career. Robin Doolittle wrote a book, as you rightly point out in your piece,
Right,
um,
right.
to line her pockets on the misery of the Ford family. Katie Simpson, as you said, I think Mark Kelly,
Mark Toohey
same
wrote a
thing.
book too.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
narcissistic opus about how he tried to help him. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yeah, these people are shameless, absolutely shameless. Now, when I did my book Underdog in 2016, I felt it really important to do a chapter to set the record straight. And my publisher said it was one of the best chapters ever written about Rob Ford because I showed some empathy and compassion towards him. And that's the only reason I say that.
So, who's missing from this documentary? You knew Rob Ford back then.
Mhm.
Who
Mhm.
could have provided at least the remotest sense of balance in all of this?
Anyone that I worked with at the Sun who covered City Hall, and not like I said, it could have been me, it could have been others who were at the City Hall bureau during Rob Ford's time. I even saw some of them on the videos. It could have been somebody who was on council who supported him, his closest allies like Doug Holliday, like Case Oates. I mean, these people did experience the craziness, but they also knew that, like I said, his heart was in the right place.
And when you look at Toronto now, post Rob Ford, it's a
Mhm.
mess. It's a train wreck. I don't think Olivia Chow could do worse if she tried. I saw a clip of her today where she's bragging about Toronto being the fastest growing city in North America. That's a problem, sister. That everybody is
Yeah.
landing at Pearson and claiming refugee status, and then you don't have a place to put them, and you don't have roads for them to drive on, and
Mhm.
houses and hospitals for them to have. I mean, I just look at the mess
Mhm.
since Rob Ford. Sure, he had
Mhm.
his problems, but he did his best to keep the city of Toronto uh, be the best that it could possibly be. I think he, as you say, his heart was in the right place.
Well, he tried to stop the waste and mismanagement and the
Mm.
corruption at City Hall, and the left, of course, did not like that one bit. And he had an affinity, as I say in my column, to the common man. And he had no problem going and knocking on people's doors and trying to help them. Sometimes we said, well, you're a mayor, you shouldn't be doing that. There are other people to do it. But frankly, a number of the um, councillors did not respond, were not retail politicians, didn't care about their constituents, just cared about getting reelected. And, it was just a totally different person. I think they were very jealous of him, very upset that he was upsetting the apple cart. Does it sound a little bit like what's going on south of the border? Because it reminds me very much.
Me
But I'm
too.
telling you, Sheila, when I watched that video last night, I was sickened.
Mhm.
It reminded me of all the awful, awful things that happened over his time in office.